Right, we're gonna start her up here. I'd like to thank you all for coming for another Bluegrass Real Estate Investors Meetup. This is SBA loans, and we're gonna go ahead and get started here. We do have two speakers this time, a little bit different. We have Zach and Jennifer on the call, and if you could introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll start with you, Zach.
So I'm Zach Moore. I work at Traditional Bank. I'm a senior vice president here at the bank. Been a commercial lender and a senior lender. Senior lender for about 5 years, commercial lender for about 17. Moved to Traditional Bank after spending the first 15 years of my career at Farmers Bank, which became United Bank, which became West Banco. So shortly thereafter, I came over to Traditional Bank, and I've been here, like I said, in Frankfort office for about a year.
And Jennifer, if you could do a small introduction, please.
Jennifer Adkins. I'm the owner of Time Bookkeeping. Been in bookkeeping for about 10 years. My initiative is to help small businesses understand their accounting, get their books cleaned up, and reduce their taxes.
Awesome. And I do want to preface this call in that the SBA loan program is something that's evolving almost on a daily basis. So please do keep that in mind, that this is just for educational purposes, and anything that we do say today could even possibly change even tomorrow. So just keep that all in mind. But one thing I want to start with is that there are two programs right now specifically we're going to talk about, and that's the EIDL and the PPP program. We're going to start with the EIDL, and this one I'm going to ask directly to you, Zach, and we're going to make it just kind of a quick fire type thing. And I just want to know, who is eligible for an EIDL loan? And I'm just going to ask the profession, and you just say yes or no, okay?
Sure.
So, am I eligible for the EIDL program as a real estate agent?
Yes.
Wholesaler?
Yes.
Landlord?
Yes.
General contractor?
Yes.
Lawn care service?
Absolutely.
Mommy blogger at home?
Pretty much. Let me say, pretty much any small business with less than 500 employees is most likely eligible for the EIDL loan. I will preface by saying I'm not as up to speed on EIDL as I am with the PPP, mainly because the EIDL loan goes directly to the SBA's website.
Yeah. And kind of the purpose of that exercise is that I really just want to point out that, like, basically anyone that has a side hustle, as we call it kind of nowadays, which is basically about 50% of America probably at this point, is eligible for this program. Okay, and just like anybody can apply for it almost. The program was set up to be for kind of like a natural disaster program, that whenever your area is in a state of emergency, you can apply for these type of loans. One thing that they did change that's a little bit different is that the loan process is quite a bit shorter now. I think it's only like 3 pages when it was actually live. It's not live right now, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But since the nation is considered in a state of emergency, basically anyone in the United States, and I think that includes its territories as well, can apply for this. So that's why there's been such a rush on these, and it's been pretty much exhausted as well. So and Jennifer, you can jump in also anytime as well if you have any extra feedback on these. Is there a way to check for through the SBA about my EIDL application?
I wrote down that I did not know the answer to that. I looked on there today and I couldn't find anything. I think really you're at their mercy, and you kind of wait for them to contact you.
Yeah, the clients that I have that have received either of the loans, it's been it shows up in their bank account without notice.
Yeah, and that's what I've kind of seen as well. Whenever you do apply, once again, whenever it was open, you went through the application process. They did have an email, and basically you could call the SBA, and all they're going to tell you is that your application's in process. So, I mean, there's really no reason to call them. They're not going to give you any more feedback other than that. And the only real indication that you can get is that you can watch other people that have applications around the same number as you. Maybe I'm on a Discord chat that has that. or either online groups, Facebook groups, kind of ask people around. And whenever they kind of maybe got their numbers filled, that maybe you're kind of somewhat next in the line. And also the SBA will run a credit check on you. Once you see that hit your credit, you probably are going to get your advance within the next couple of weeks, roughly, is what I was seeing. But other than that, they're not going to call you. They're not going to email you. Whenever you do apply for this, this is a loan as well. And I assume that they're going to contact you later on about the loan portion of that. I assume that they probably do that through an email or a phone call, but I don't know, Jennifer, if you had some people maybe get to the loan process part of that yet?
No. So my clients apply. Sorry, I wasn't completely tuned in on your question there, Jim. I am working in my home today, and I have a teenage daughter preparing for work. So a little bit of distraction there. I'm sorry. The clients that I did have, I think I caught most of the question. The clients that I did have that applied at a small bank. Like I said, there was no notification. It came into their bank account with no notification. Was that the question, Jim? I'm sorry.
On the EIDL, which is through the SBA, whenever you're applying, it is for a loan, but you can check the box to get the upfront money, which is considered a grant and is an advance on your loan to pay for certain bills right now. Do you know of anybody, even Zach as well, that's actually gotten to the loan process of that? Because once you apply, it's for a loan, but then you can get that direct deposit that's upfront real quickly. It's $1,000 per employee. And then after that, they're supposed to contact you about the loan portion of that. Has any of your clients actually been contacted about the loan part of that?
Not mine, no.
Yeah. No. And that's kind of what I'm seeing as well. And one thing that is really interesting about the SBA with the EIDL is that they had a certain chunk of money. They exhausted that money, closed the portal. And then after that, they said that they were getting now double the original amount. And even now they're saying they don't have enough to process all the loans that they have. Also, they're only right now, it seems like, depositing that upfront grant part. So that makes me wonder if they even have enough to do the actual loan part of that, which would be exponentially a lot more money. It just seems like they're just handing out the quick $1,000 per employee and then moving on right now and not even worrying about the loan part of that, which is actually kind of the second half of that whole process. So they seem to not have a lot of money for that program right now. When the EIDL was announced, it was for a 10K advance. I've seen now where it looks like they've changed it to 1K per employee. Is that correct? And I kind of touched on that, but that is one of the questions that we got on Facebook. So does anybody want to touch on that a little bit?
Everything that I've read has just said 1,000 per employee is an upfront advance.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'll touch on that just a little bit as well. Whenever the SBA first came out with the program, they did say it was a 10K. And then they rolled it back to 1K per employee with a max of 10. Right now, there is a letter being sent out from Congress to the SBA to grant those people the 10K because that's what they had passed. So it gets kind of in a little bit of a controversy right now, and that might be why the SBA is saying they don't have enough money to process the ones they have now because say you had a single sole proprietor, you got $1,000 advance, and then now according to Congress, you're supposed to get $10,000 instead of that 1K per person. So we'll see kind of how that fleshes out. But originally, the wording was 10K up front, and then they changed it to 1K per employee with a max of 10. And then now they're kind of going back and having a lot of arguments about what the wording was supposed to be. So we'll stay tuned with that. But that's an interesting controversy around the EIDL right now. Can I apply for multiple EIDL loans if I have more than one business? Say I have a grass cutting business and I'm a buy and hold landlord. Can I apply twice?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was seeing as well. Can I apply for an EIDL if I don't have an EIN?
Yes. You use your Social Security number instead. Many sole proprietors do not have a federal identification number. They use their Social Security number instead.
Is the, I think it's FEIN and EIN, they're both the same, correct?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah, the F is just for federal.
awesome. Has anybody here applied for an EIDL between you two?
No, I have not.
You talking about personally?
Yeah, Zach, you have?
Yes, I did.
Okay. When did you apply for yours?
Oh, goodness. Actually, I told you I hadn't received anything. I got an email back maybe Saturday, basically just saying, we got your application, we'll get back to you. I didn't put anything out there for the emergency money. So
Okay, so when you did your application, you didn't hit the check mark for the advance part of it, you just did the loan? Okay.
correct.
So that's something that Zach actually did that's a little bit different than what most people have done. Whenever I know it's kind of hard to show right now since the portal's not really open, but whenever you filled out this application, you had a checkbox that you could hit that would be for that 1K per employee, kind of like an advance. Zach chose not to do that. Most people have chose to do that to kind of just get the money up front. And also that is like a grant, so it is forgivable as well. But that's interesting. Like you said, you get an email, they're basically just going to tell you they're processing it. So there's not a whole lot you can do to kind of stay updated on your process with the EIDL. Okay. And then Sharon on Facebook said that she got her $1,000 already from the EIDL SBA program.
Can we ask her when she applied, Jim?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually reply right now. We'll wait for her response on that if she responds. And then usually from what I am seeing, that if you apply for the EIDL kind of in those early stages, you have received your grant. She said that she applied March 30th, which would be one of the first early dates that you could have got in. From what I'm seeing through most people, and this is, just their own word and stuff like that, that a lot of the loans that are kind of in the early April are getting processed right now. So you can see just how far behind they really are, because they closed that portal like mid-April. So they're still pretty far behind on those. Gerald also on Facebook says that he received his grant advance as well. And I'll ask him whenever he applied. And if anybody has any questions about the programs and stuff as well, definitely type those in chat. And that's for people on Facebook and on the Zoom call. Let's go on to the PPP, because this is the one that's actually a lot more complicated than the EIDL. And Zach, I'll ask this one to you since you're the one in the bank kind of processing these loans. Same deal as we did with the EIDL rapid fire. Am I eligible for the PPP as a real estate agent?
Yes.
As a wholesaler?
Yes.
As a buy and hold landlord?
Yes.
General contractor?
Yes.
Lawn care service?
Yes.
Mommy blogger at home?
Yes.
All right. Now, why are these people able to apply for this as well?
Why?
Yes.
Well, that wasn't the question I was expecting. Because same thing, pretty much any small business is eligible for the most part.
Okay. And kind of to touch back on that, Gerald on Facebook said he applied the very first day that he could, which would have been that kind of late March as well. And he said you'll get an email later explaining the loan process on the EIDL.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. There is kind of like a new change with how the PPP is being processed. For those that aren't aware, the PPP program did come up, came back down, and is now live back again. I'm sure Zach is getting swamped with applications for those right now, but Could you maybe explain a little bit about the reserve processing time set aside for the PPP for smaller banks and credit unions?
You know, I really didn't have it. I want to say that time was already passed. I looked today briefly and didn't see anything, but I know that at one point there was, I think it might have been this past Friday afternoon from like 4 to 8 p.m. or something. There was going to be a slot opened up for smaller banks. And I want to say that was banks smaller than 1 billion, but it may have been 500 million. So my bank, that didn't apply to my bank. So I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention, to be honest.
Okay. Also to touch back on Facebook, Sharon said that she hadn't received her email from the SBA prior to getting the EIDL funds, and got an email this weekend saying they're considering her application basically for the actual loan process of that, but she did get the grant portion, to reiterate that. For the PPP, if someone hasn't filed their 2019 taxes yet and doesn't have a 1099, can they use the 2018 tax returns, or do they need to get with their accountant ASAP and have their 2019 returns prepared to qualify for the PPP?
Well, I have heard two different answers there. I have heard that you could use 2018 numbers. However, our bank requires the 2019 information. So we had borrowers who just did a Schedule 19 or 2019 Schedule C and submitted that because their tax returns were not filed.
Yeah, I think it depends on what bank that's processing it. Some banks are accepting 2018 returns. Some are accepting the profit and loss statement or the balance sheet from 2019.
And Gerald actually said that he got his process through traditional bank. And that's what I'm kind of seeing, is that like with the PPP, it seems like you're having a lot better luck if you stick with those small banks and credit unions. I don't know, if Zach, if you all can just process them a lot faster and people aren't getting lost like in masses like at Chase Bank or something like that, but there could be something with that. It seems like a lot of people are having more success with the smaller banks.
I think it probably helps if you have an actual person that you can reach out to at a bank. You know, banking is relationships, and a lot of these larger banks, it's either through an online portal and you just get, you know, stuck in the system and you don't have anybody to talk to. Whereas with the smaller banks such as us, you've got somebody you can reach out to and actually talk to about it. So that seems to help. We processed in the first round, we processed 799 loans in a little over 2 weeks. So I'm not sure on the count on this latest round, but it's slowed down just a little bit, but still quite a few.
Right. Chris Eddy on Zoom did say he got his PPP without filing his 2019 tax returns, and that's what I'm seeing kind of across the board, that there is ways kind of around that as well. Someone did ask the EIDL with the loan program, what's the interest rate on the loan part of that?
For the EIDL?
Yes.
My understanding is 3.75 for for-profits and 2.75 for nonprofits.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of seeing.
The PPP was designated at 1%, and I think that's where the confusion comes in, is that they're throwing out multiple interest rates for different types of loans.
Yeah, so basically, just to reiterate, that there is a lot of confusion with that, and that the PPP, if you do not fulfill the portion of that, which we'll get into a little bit probably with Jennifer, it will be 1% loan. With the EIDL, which is a completely different program, is 3.75, and it's approximately supposed to be paid back over 30 years, which is amazing. Even if you don't get the grant portion and just get the loan portion, 3.75% for 30 years for what you get. And I think you can defer that first year even on top of that as well. So that's a pretty nice little loan anyway, just for anything. Kind of to go back with the EIDL, I didn't cover this. What can you use it for? Is there any stipulations on what you can and can't use it for?
Yeah, I had some notes about that. It's really for business as an ongoing concern, more or less. So it's not necessarily just for payroll.
Hey,
Jennifer?
Zach, let's specify which loan we're speaking on, because I
Yeah.
think the lines get a little bit blurry, because the PPP does have an expectation of what the funds are used for.
Yeah.
I think that EDIL is more of a operating your business, what you need day to day that you're lacking. And the PPP is more designated for payroll and 25% overhead strictly. What I read today is those who have found to use PPP inappropriately will, could pursue legal action against those persons who took the loan and didn't use it as accordingly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was seeing as well. I know we're kind of mixing kind of the two back and forth a
Yeah.
little bit there, but the EIDL stands for, I believe, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So just think of it that way, that your business is in a disaster situation. You need some money right now. You need to keep the business up and running as much as possible. And as far as I know, you can use that money toward anything. If you want to use it toward payroll, go right ahead, pay your utilities, pay your rent, pay whatever you need to pay. They don't care. They just want to keep you running. Now the
I think
PPP.
there was a stipulation on that though, Jim. I think the portion, if you had already taken out a loan, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, I think it said prior to January, if you had taken out any small business loan, and in that small business loan, you had calculated part of it to go toward payroll, the EIDL had to then be a refinance process for your last loan that you had out with small business. Am I correct on that, Zach?
I honestly don't know the answer to that with regard to EIDL. My understanding is just in what I have seen is just it's for operational expenses. It doesn't really specify.
Okay, yeah, and I know whenever you do apply for the PPP, they do ask you if you did apply for the IDL as well, and then they kind of work that in.
I think what'll happen is, at first I was told you couldn't have both, but then I have read where you can receive both, but that your PPP forgivable piece could be reduced by the amount of the loan advance you received under the EIDL.
Yeah, you can't have both, and they do affect how much assistance that you get on that. And then as a general example too, to make it kind of a little bit easier on the EIDL, if you do get a loan for say $15,000, you have 3 employees, you took that $3,000 upfront grant, your loan will, and the one that you get charged interest on will be the $12,000. Okay, so like that advance that you got, that check mark that you did for that $1,000 per employee, that will be forgivable to you, but the rest will be on the loan. So that's clear to everybody else more. On the, Joe says on Zoom, if you don't have a payroll per se, like anybody directly 1099 payroll type stuff, but use regular owner draws from your LLC, how does that affect your PPP loan?
It depends on if you're S Corp or C Corp or straight LLC.
Let's go LLC, because that's easier.
Straight LLC, you can take owner draws and they will account for the straight LLC. And I'm pretty sure the profit and loss statement from the LLC will suffice for verification of what the income was. Zach, do you have any other?
Yeah, I was reading something on here about a note on self-employed individuals where it says forgiveness of owner compensation replacement is limited to 8 weeks or 850 seconds of the 2019 net profit.
Yeah.
So I think it just really matters how the entity is titled.
Yeah, and I think to kind of keep it easy too, the PPP, it's like payroll protection program. So just think about that. Like it really just needs to go toward payroll, and how are you going to prove that payroll?
And honestly, I have a feeling that once the PPP loans are exhausted, I think the SBA will move more into the forgiveness piece, and there'll probably be some new guidance that will come out on that that hopefully will clear things up for bankers and how to identify and calculate forgiveness.
whenever you're applying, Sharon on Facebook wants to know for the PPP, would you use 2019 profit and income, not 2020 year to date, correct?
Correct.
That's correct. 2019.
Okay.
The 2020 information, I think, really was just to support the fact that you're still in business.
Yeah, they wanted to know you were in business before February the 15th, I think.
Right.
A question that we had earlier, according to the Treasury Department, all businesses that accept the assistance with the PPP will be fully audited. Do you know how far back they plan on doing the audits, and how does that process go?
Yeah, so that wasn't referring to a full audit. What they said is that anyone who receives a loan, a PPP loan in the amount of $2 million or more, the PPP will be audited to make sure that it was accurate, probably for the calculation piece. There was nothing to say that it was going to audit the business itself.
Yeah, and the forgiveness part will be, if you apply for forgiveness, of course, those documents will be audited, but that was, I think that's where the confusion came in.
Sharon on Facebook wants to know also for the PPP, if you're a sole proprietor who regularly uses 1099 contractors, will that count as payroll even though they're not W-2 employees?
No. That contractor would need to apply on their own, so or is eligible to apply on their own. So they could potentially be double counted if you did that.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to double count on the government because they'll call you out on that for sure. Can you apply for multiple PPP loans if you have more than one business?
Yes.
Okay. Can you apply for the PPP if you don't have an EIN number?
Yes, Social Security number.
Okay.
A lot of real estate, that would apply mostly to real estate agents. Well, not just real estate agents, but that's one that I've commonly seen apply. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jennifer had actually put a presentation together. Would you like to do that now, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think we're actually good. We can actually just do slide 2 and 3 because we've already covered the rest of it.
Okay.
If you can't get it up quickly, Jim, we can just skim through it.
Oh, I got it here.
Okay.
There's your slide 2, I believe.
I just wanted to touch on the forgiveness part of the PPP loan. So I want to clear up the fact that we know that from the date that you signed your application, you have 8 weeks to justify the spending of that money. And the 8 weeks, the clock started the day you signed the application, not the date you received the funds. So for your payroll, the only things that can be counted for your payroll is the salaries that the employee actually receives, wages, commissions, or tips. Now, when I say employee actually receives, that means you wrote it on a payroll check, they received it. That doesn't count for the taxes portion that the business is responsible for paying. Paid time off and sick leave. So it'll cover sick leave, family medical leave, vacation, any paid time off that the employee is eligible, that's a benefit through working for your company, that's also included in part of that payroll forgiveness. The state and local taxes that the business owes can be covered on the 75% payroll. Again, there on the bottom, I just noted again that it's 8 weeks from the date you signed your application, not the date you received it. So then on the notes side, I want to make sure everybody knows if you reduce your headcount during that 8 weeks, they will penalize you for that. Also, you have till June the 30th to, so the way it works, you have till June the 30th to bring back all of your headcount. But the employees that were on actual payroll during that 8 weeks are the only employees that you're actually eligible to write for the 75% payroll forgiveness. So anybody that's still off payroll after that during that 8 weeks, you cannot count that income that expense that you would have been incurring if they were still on payroll. Anybody have any questions on that part of it? We good, Jim?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, we can go on to the next one. So the next one is overhead expenses. So you can pay your office rent, your utilities, mortgage interest. If you have credit cards out, or if you have a note on one of your vehicles, your auto loans, you can write off the interest part that you pay on that, but not the actual principal or any charges that's associated to that. That's associated to that loan. You can only account for the interest on those loans. Same thing for mortgage interest. You can't actually count the mortgage payment, but you can count the interest that you pay toward that mortgage. Is there any questions about that to total up your 25%? Sorry, Jim.
Oh, you're fine. I think just kind of in general, with the PPP, what they're trying to do is basically, we're in a crisis. We want to keep the economy going as long as possible. That means you need to keep your employees employed as long as possible. So we're going to try to give you some assistance to keep those people on payroll, to keep them working, to encourage them to keep working, and not put them on unemployment.
Right.
Zach, I don't know, or Jennifer, if you want to touch on that, how do they figure up how much to give you for this loan program?
So they took the total 52. They took the total of 52 weeks, divided it, your payroll for 52 weeks, divided it, and then allowed you to multiply it. They divided it by 12 and then multiplied it by 2.5. So that's what you were allowed to apply for in the repayment. And of course, they made everyone exclude the 1099 employees and, everyone that's not straight on payroll, on a W-2 payroll. You got anything to add to that, Zach?
Yeah, it's basically 2.5 times your your monthly.
Yeah,
so it's basically 2.5 months of payroll. And the thought process was that 0.5 could be used as the 25% for other expenses.
Right. But there was an exception on that, Jim, that said if your employee made over $100,000, anything above that $100,000 is to be excluded.
Right.
Yeah. Why are they giving you basically 2 times as much? Why don't they just give you exactly what your payroll is?
So it's 2.5 times.
It's 2.5, but it's meant to be 8 weeks of payroll. And then the other is 25% additional, basically, for the other expenses.
Yeah.
Sharon has a question on Facebook. If you couldn't pay your people without the PPP loan program, so you're waiting until you get the funds to pay them, you're not going to show payments during the weeks between the time you applied and the time you got the funds. Does that make a difference?
I don't believe so. I believe they just have to be back at work and have the same head count as prior to.
Yeah, before June the 1st.
Right.
Okay. Whenever we're trying to basically prove on the PPP that we're using it toward payroll, is there anything that you suggest, maybe like getting a new account, other type of documentation, receipts, anything that we need that would be used down the road to ask for that forgiveness?
There's 2 separate ways that I've seen it done, and I've heard it recommended that it's done. One would be, of course, get the separate bank account, but my customers are running into the issue of banks are closed. They're not allowing walk-in traffic. So therefore, if you can't go in and verify your identity, you cannot start a new account. So you can create a sub-account to your bank account within QuickBooks, or within most of the accounting software will allow you to create a separate account for you to allot those funds to. So you can track where your disbursements are going, because that was where the recommendation of the separate bank account came from, was just so you have clear lines of where the money was used and when it was used, instead of it being mixed in with your other business expenses.
Right. Chris asked, and I'm not sure which one this is for, can I prepay the interest on an installment loan?
honestly don't know the answer to that. My assumption at this point would be no, that it would probably be only eligible for expenses that were incurred during the period of time.
Yeah, just the way I understand it as well.
But if you can get away with it, it's great.
Yeah. Whenever the kind of 8 weeks are up with your PPP program, what do you think? I know it's kind of theory crafting a little bit, but how is that process going to go? Trying to approve and ask for forgiveness for your PPP loans. Do you think it's going to be like an email? Or are they going to call you? Portal submissions?
The documentation I have found, Jim, states that they're going to put up an application process on the Small Business Administration website, and that you're going to be able to submit your application along with all the documents to support your request for forgiveness through the portal instead of a face-to-face visit.
Are you talking about for the PPP?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Yeah.
But it would go, the forgiveness piece will go directly to the bank as well, not to the SBA.
Oh, well, this morning on the online, it says they're going to create a portal. It's going to be online. So maybe we need to watch that and see.
Yeah, that would be news to me.
Yeah, what they're doing.
My understanding was that the borrower would submit the forgiveness information and paperwork to the bank, and the bank would determine forgiveness.
Oh, that's going to be scary for you, Zach.
More work on the back end.
Yeah.
I hope you're right, though. I hope there's a portal and it can be done differently.
I'll find the document that I read. It was on the forgiveness.gov this morning. So it's a separate portal that they've created from the SBA. That's where I found it. So when I find that link again, I'll email it over to you so you can check it out.
Well, they might even be trying to build in both. Like if you have something pretty straightforward and easy and you feel like you could do it on your own, maybe you could use the portal. And then for those people that like the in-person or maybe don't have internet and stuff like that, they can go to their local bank and maybe process them that way as well. Try to reduce their own load. We shall see how that plays out, though, for sure. Is there anything else that you all want to include that you want to talk about the EIDL or the PPP program?
I don't think so. I think the money is, I'm not sure, I haven't seen an update on the amount of money that's left, but I have already heard that there could be a potential third round in 30 to 60 days. So.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that it's something that's very fluid, and it's something that I think that they will try to fund some more. We'll see how much that ends up being, but I know we're waiting for the next round of stimulus and kind of that fourth round of legislation with the kind of CARES Act 2.0, if you would call it that way. We'll see how that plays out, but we don't come back. I think they came back in session just today. So the next couple of weeks are going to be interesting, and we'll definitely see more about if any of these programs get funded again. I do want to encourage everybody that if they do want to apply for the EIDL, they should try to, if the portal ever does come back up, and I feel pretty confident that it probably will sometime. What are the things that I want to have like ready to go whenever that portal does come back up? Because my theory is it's not going to be up for very long if it does come back. Jen or Zach, do you know what things that you need for the EIDL?
I'm sorry, you might have cut out a little bit on the end of that. I didn't hear what your question was.
What's the information that I need to apply for the EIDL?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember what I had to do when I went through the SBA's website. I want to say mostly your tax identification number, and most of the other information is going to be hopefully stuff that you know off of hand. But I'll be honest, I don't recall on the EIDL what information is required.
I think they definitely shortened it a lot, and it was basically the number of employees that you have. So if you're a sole proprietor, it's going to be 1, but say if your spouse or something works in the business too, that would also be considered 2 employees. If you're going to check the box for the advance, make sure you do that. If not, you're just going to have a regular loan process and kind of, like you said, your EIN number and your expenses and income and stuff like that. So you want to just make sure you got kind of all that ready to go before whenever it does go live, if it does again. So make sure you're ready whenever it comes back, because it's going to be a rush. Anything you want to add on there, Jen, as well?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, and I think it's been a really interesting call to get your all's perspectives from the bank on how they're processing these loans and what we needed. And Jennifer, I appreciate you coming on as well to give us kind of that accounting portion of that, because make sure you do want to strive to try to get those PPP loans forgiven as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Where can we find out more about you, Zach?
What's that?
Where can we find more about you, or if people want to get in contact with you about doing their own loans?
Well, you can call me at a traditional bank here in Frankfort. I do have a direct number if you wanted to post it. It's 502-699-2164. I can email that to you if you want, or it's in my signature line from my email. I don't know how much longer we'll be taking the applications. We've kind of just about reached our limit as a bank, but I would encourage people who have not applied and wish to, if they have a bank representative that they deal with, to probably reach out to them first. They're probably going to be able to react the quickest as far as getting it turned around. So.
Yeah. And where can we find out more about you, Jennifer, if people want to contact you for your services?
They're welcome to call me or check out my Facebook page. My phone number is 304-860-2220, or they can find us on Facebook at Just in Time LLC. Just in Time Bookkeeping LLC, I'm sorry. So used to short referencing the name.
Yeah, definitely search for those, and I'll make sure those are in the comments on the Facebook replay as well. So thank you all for joining us for another meeting, and do not forget that next week, noon, I got the SurePoint Equity coming on, and we're going to talk a lot and give a deep dive into hard money lending world right now, and some real tinfoil hat type stuff on where the economy is going for the rest of 2020. So definitely tune in for that, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.